What if I told you that one of America's smallest states once stood at the crossroads of global empires? Religious revolution, slavery and freedom, and even the ripple effects of the Mongol world. Maryland looks quiet on the map, a slice of coastline, a curve around the Chesapeake Bay, a border state between North and South. But beneath that calm geography lies a history so layered, so conflicted, it helped shape the identity of the entire United States. Maryland was founded in 1634 as a radical experiment. At a time when Europe was tearing itself apart over religion, King Charles V granted this land to Cecil Calvert, the second Lord Baltimore. His vision, a safe haven for English Catholics who were being persecuted in Protestant England. That alone makes Maryland different. It wasn't just another colony chasing profit, it was an attempt at religious coexistence in a violent century, and in 1649, Maryland passed the Act of Toleration, one of the first laws in the American colonies protecting religious freedom. That sounds progressive, but here is the truth most people don't talk about. The law only protected Trinitarian Christians. Jews, Muslims, and atheists were still excluded. Even in its tolerance, Maryland carried the limits of its time. Now here's something almost no one connects. While Maryland was being founded in the 1600s, the world was still living in the shadow of the Mongol Empire. Just a few centuries earlier, the Mongols had built the largest contiguous land empire in history. Their rule reshaped global trade through the Silk Road, linking China, the Middle East, and Europe more tightly than ever before. Why does that matter to Maryland? Because the global trade network stabilized under Mongol rule eventually helped spark Europe's hunger for overseas exploration. The exchange of goods, ideas, technology, even gunpowder accelerated European ambition. That ambition led to colonial expansion, and that expansion led to places like Maryland. In other words, the ripple of Mongol conquest in the 1200s helped set the stage for the Atlantic world that Maryland would later join. History is never isolated, it's connected across centuries. But Maryland's story gets darker. The same colony founded for religious refuge became deeply tied to slavery. Tobacco made Maryland wealthy, and tobacco demanded labor. By the late 1600s, enslaved Africans were being brought in large numbers. Families were torn apart along the Chesapeake shores. Plantations grew rich while human beings were treated as property. Here's a powerful but lesser-known truth. Maryland had one of the largest populations of free black people before the Civil War. By 1860, nearly half of African Americans in Maryland were free. Some had bought their freedom. Some were freed by Quaker and Methodist abolitionists. Some escaped and built communities in secret. But free did not mean safe. In 1857, a man named William H. Brown was kidnapped in Baltimore and sold into slavery in the Deep South, despite being legally free. This wasn't rare. Kidnapping networks operated openly. The line between freedom and bondage in Maryland was terrifyingly thin. Then came the Civil War. Maryland was a border state, slaveholding, yet it never officially joined the Confederacy. President Abraham Lincoln understood how crucial it was. If Maryland seceded, Washington, D.C. would be surrounded by Confederate territory. So Lincoln took an extraordinary step. He suspended habeas corpus in Maryland. People suspected of supporting the Confederacy were arrested without trial. It was controversial, it was extreme, but it kept Maryland in the Union. Think about that. The survival of the United States may have depended on Maryland not breaking away. And while armies clashed in places like Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history, Maryland soil absorbed over 22,000 casualties in just one day in 1862. That battle gave Lincoln the political space to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. Again, Maryland stood at a turning point. But Maryland's untold history isn't only about war, it's about contradiction. Harriet Tubman, one of the most courageous figures in American history, was born into slavery on Maryland's eastern shore. As a child, she was beaten. She suffered a traumatic head injury that caused seizures for the rest of her life. Yet she escaped, and then came back. Again and again. At least 13 missions, roughly 70 people personally guided to freedom. Possibly hundreds more indirectly. Imagine the courage it took to return to the land that enslaved you. And even beyond slavery and war, Maryland has always been a meeting point of worlds. Baltimore became one of the busiest ports in America, connecting to global trade routes that echoed the ancient Silk Road networks once protected by Mongol rule. Immigrants from Germany, Ireland, Italy, and Eastern Europe arrived. Bringing culture, faith, and industry, the state became industrial and agricultural at the same time, divided yet unified. Even its geography reflects tension. Part north, part south, part urban, part rural. A state that has never fully belonged to one identity. And maybe that's the real untold story of Maryland. It's not just a state, it's a crossroads. A place born from religious conflict in Europe, shaped by global trade systems that trace back to Mongol-era connectivity, torn by slavery and civil war, protected by controversial presidential power, and redeemed in part by the bravery of people like Harriet Tubman. Maryland teaches us something powerful. History isn't clean. It's layered, it's complicated, it's uncomfortable. And sometimes, the smallest places carry the heaviest stories. So the next time you look at Maryland on a map, that small, oddly shaped state hugging the Chesapeake Bay, remember this: you're looking at a land that helped decide the fate of a nation and carries echoes of an empire that once ruled half the world. History doesn't disappear, it lingers in the soil.